Hi everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of The Hype, where minds collide and ideas amplify. You are watching us live streaming from our Beijing studio. We're also live on various platforms right now of CGTN, including Facebook, X, YouTube, and Chinese platforms of Weibo, WeChat, and of course our CGTN official platform. This special episode is close to my heart because we are discussing China-Arab relations, specifically focusing on 40 years of diplomatic relations between China and the United Arab Emirates. So, to begin our episode, let me introduce our lovely guest. Please say hello to our audience.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Lin Xiangyu. I'm a Chinese student currently living in the United Arab Emirates, in Abu Dhabi specifically. I studied economics and political science there in Abu Dhabi.
Fantastic. Oh, speaking of Abu Dhabi, we have a lovely guest joining us online. Najla, can you please say hello to our audience?
Ni hao, everyone. 早上好, I think it's afternoon right now in China. This is Najla Alzarouni وترجمة ميزة ناجي. My Chinese name is Najili. I'm an academic lecturer on China foreign policy and international relations expert with a focus on China, Middle East relations and China-UAE relations as well. So I'm very pleased to be with you today.
All right, thank you both for joining us. And since we're talking China-Arab relations, we have a friend from China and a friend from UAE joining us. So, as an icebreaker, let's make this talk more exciting. Can we please share what is your favorite dishes? You from the Arab cuisine and Najla from the Chinese dishes. Can we start with Barry?
Yeah, of course. I would say Arabic sweets are really iconic, to be honest. I love Arabic sweets. There's a lot of, Arabic sweets talk about like the kunafe.
Yeah, kunafe.
Lukamat. And also, like, there is a ton of, and we always say this, was tea or karak. I would say kunafe is, is absolutely my favorite because it's like a sweet cheese pie. You can just grab a slice of it and come with karak. It's really good.
That's the authentic dish, like knafe. But Najla, please talk to me right now. I know there's something viral going on the internet right now. Is there something called a knafe chocolate in UAE right now? Please tell me a bit more about that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, food here, we do very creative food. So, for example, for the knafa, since you like it, we can do it like with a Nutella, with a pistachio, with some lotus as well. Even for the luqaymat that you just mentioned, now they do it with cheese inside it. So it's very nice to have that contrast in the taste where you have like a sweet and from inside it's cheese. It's super yummy. And for the karak as well, we do it with different flavors, with ginger. By the way, I just had karak in the morning so that I wake up and get ready for the interview.
Isn't it so fascinating? Like the traditional sweet in the Arab world, it's made in a specific way, but this generation, it's all over the internet. They add chocolate to it, they add pistachio cream to it. It's so all I see when I open TikTok is like the knafe chocolate everywhere. So, okay, Barry told us that he loves knafe. Najla, what about you? What is like the #1 Chinese dish in your opinion?
My favorite is the hot pot. It's more of like the gathering on the hot pot where we have the water boiled and then we add the spices to it and then we start cooking the food all together, talking. So I like to do the hot pot. It's for the sake of gathering and spending good time with my friends and doing more of lengthy hangouts. Where all of us keep, adding food, eating, talking, without really noticing what we are eating. And then we feel so bad that we ate a lot for, let's say, 3-4 hours for the gathering on hotpot.
Definitely. Hot pot knafe, two of my favorite things. But if I may ask you guys to recommend to each other something that most people won't know. For example, Barry, where do you come from in China?
I'm from Beijing, actually.
You're from Beijing?
Yeah.
All right. Is there some specific Beijing dish that you would recommend to Najla and to our audience?
I would say jajang noodles. Go give it a try. So basically, you boil the noodle first and dry it out from the soup. You just, put the soup aside and mix with sauce together. Most of the times, it's the sauce is made of sesame paste as well as the peanut butter. And serve together with some veggies as well to basically mix up everything and go give it a try. It's really delicious and absolutely really suitable for the summer.
So I should try it maybe.
It's very, very
From
nice.
the Emirati food, I don't know if you like more of like desserts or like salty food. So I may recommend, for example, the majboos. It's my favorite. It's rice cooked with the chicken, beef, or fish with some vegetables, where they make the sauce of the, let's say, chicken with vegetables, and then they put it on the rice, and then they close it, and it kept cooking for like some time, and then like you have like a very proper lunch out of it, and then you fall asleep.
Awesome. Najla, can you talk to me a bit more? You've been to China, you were like a youth ambassador between China and the Arab world. How do you see food as a bridge to connect two cultures?
Definitely, food is a good bridge, and I think it's one of the common grounds between us in the Arab world and UAE and China. Simply because what I noticed from being like visiting China almost every 2 months I'm in China, I think that a key aspect of the hospitality in China is food, where Chinese people care a lot on how they will serve the food, what kind of food they can offer us, and they try to bring more of like diversity of Chinese food to us. This is similar to us in the Arab world, where whenever we have, let's say, guests, friends coming from the outside world, we take care of the food as a mean of maybe showing respect and good hospitality, and maybe reflecting on our strong friendship. So I think food is very key for both sides, and that's why we care a lot about food, and we try maybe whenever like we have guests from China to provide a diverse maybe menu of food, so that like they have the option to eat whatever is suitable and maybe nice and like interesting for them to try.
Absolutely. As Najla said, in the Arab world and in China, hospitality is an aspect that is so deep
Of course.
in the culture, right? As Najla said, in the Arab world, we have something called a daifullah, which means like the guest is God's guest if you come, but I feel like this is so deeply integrated in Chinese culture as well.
Exactly.
You always invite guests to a big feast whenever they visit, don't they?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I totally agree with Najla has shared with us. For Chinese food, it's also about sharing as well. And I think there's absolutely the sort of link between the Arabic cuisine and Chinese food, because it's really about the connection, food bridging people from different cultures, and really through the process of eating and sharing food, we really kind of get touch about our own culture and also learn different cultures, because food is not just food. How they make it and different ingredients in it is really about the culture, the kind of own background within it. So absolutely, I think it's really about the sharing and then about the kind of connection.
And it's definitely a window for you to get to know more about another culture through their food, through how they make it, and like you see all the friendship and the family aspects in it. So I think food is something that is the easiest way to make you know a new culture.
Of course.
All right, I think since we're all foodies here, and I'm so glad that our conversation started with food, I think all the ice that needed to be broken have been broken. We're all going to meet up for food soon. But now let me get more in depth. Speaking about China and UAE, I'd like to ask Barry first, what is your story with the Arab world? I know you studied a lot of information involved, so tell us your story.
Yeah, of course. I mean, just like a lot of Chinese teenagers or younger generation China, most of, when we speak of Dubai, when we speak of the UAE, the Arab world, the first thing we're thinking about is just the luxurious hotels, to be honest, just like Dubai, and then just desert, because it's very hot, the desert area where sometimes you might see the pyramid, but that's just a kind of, I would say, kind of stereotype towards the Middle East, toward the UAE. When you really dive into this region, especially when you go there, travel to there, study or work there, you're gonna see like a different side of the city, of the country, besides the kind of hotel, besides the kind of landscape. You're gonna meet a lot of people, see the cuisines, and see like the kind of real, connection business happening there. And of course, I would say most importantly is that the Middle East, or I would say the UAE, is way diverse than what we thought. Absolutely. And yeah, that's, I mean, because of the kind of stereotype, to be honest, that's how I decided to go to the UAE to study initially in 2020. But once I really kind of dive into the culture and kind of, have my Arabic friends, Emirati friends, and really, living there like a student, it's really different from what we thought or what the stereotype is like.
Absolutely. You need to go there to actually like tackle the stereotypes. But I'm glad you grew up seeing it in some way and it didn't make you go like, oh, well, stereotype is telling me it looks like that. I'm going to avoid it. But instead you wanted to go and check it out more. Najla, I know you're a scholar yourself. Is your story similar to Varies? Or tell us your story between cultural exchange and education between China and UAE from your perspective.
Yes, sure. So my story started with China in 2007 when I was in high school, still a student, and then I decided to take part in a program. It was like youth exchange program to China. It was mainly to Beijing and Shanghai. And so the first trip for me to China, it was like me going to the other side of the world. It was a little bit, awkward to explore, let's say, a new reality in the world that we knew very little about China. But then over time, every year I go to China, and then when I joined the university for my BA studies, then I was appointed as the UAE Youth Ambassador to China, where more and more trips were very enjoyable for me. And then I started my career path also with a focus on China. And now I shifted also to academia. So my story is that I was studying about China and trying to learn more about China. And now I reached the level of lecturing and sharing my knowledge and experience on China. And so this is the little story that I always maybe tell in that like time flies. It was very quick when I was a little student and now I'm academic lecturer on China. Simply because I have the passion to understand China and know China from within. That's why I'm keen not to limit my understanding about China from outside China, but I always try to explore different cities in China and see the transformation. And so maybe here I want to introduce a book that I have. It's one of the very early books I bought. It's called Tour in China, where it shows you the geographic diversity in China, and maybe it shows you every single city, how it was before, let's say 30, 40 years ago, and the huge transformation. I'm always inspired by the story of, for example, Shenzhen, where it was sort of like a rural area, and now it's like a hub for technology, and like big companies are there, I mean, based there. And so this is I mean the story that I always tell, of that there is a huge transformation that the whole world should learn from China, and the different cities development and expansion, not only from technology and industrial side, but also from social and cultural side.
Absolutely. What a wonderful like journey she's had, right? Since
Absolutely.
2007
Yeah.
until now. Najla, I'm curious, you told me you're a lecturer now about like different aspects of China. How are your lectures received by the students in UAE? What's their reactions when they like what kind of questions do they ask you?
So I mean, for those lectures that I give, I always try to bring more stories, videos that I've taken by myself, and like because we have, and whenever like we lecture students, we have to give them different perspectives, different views on like how the world views China. But then I also try to bring my own story from within China, and like my experience and how I view things, given that I've been visiting China for years now and maybe communicating with Chinese people. And so that for them to see the difference on like, and maybe give them the passion that whenever they would like to look deeper at any aspect of, let's say, China, or like any other power, a great power, let's say, they have to investigate from within. And maybe now they are more passionate of maybe visiting different places in China, trying to maybe get to know more Chinese scholars as well, because our understanding of China should not really be limited to the outside Western understanding of China, but also maybe trying to understand the Chinese thinking and the Chinese approach in foreign policy and international relations.
Absolutely, from within, from different other lectures as well. She's sharing her story in her lectures rather than just like, oh, the TV said that or the media said that, but my
Exactly.
experience is like that. Tell me a bit more about your experience in the Arab world. I know you were in Abu Dhabi, you told me
Yeah,
last
yeah.
summer, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you also study there?
I study
So
in
tell
Abu
me a
Dhabi
bit
as well,
more,
yes,
yeah.
of course. So I'd say Abu Dhabi very special. There is a lot of Emirates in the UAE. I mean, it's all of them are really different. Besides, you know, I would say Dubai is the most popular one. Abu Dhabi is actually the capital of the UAE, but I think most people don't realize that. Each city has its different characteristics when you explore. So I would say Dubai is absolutely more touristic. There is a lot of great landscape to see, and Abu Dhabi is more like the kind of family-oriented city where you can see a lot of different activities with your family and also explore the nature a bit as well. So when I mean, when I go into the UAE, I didn't realize that there is so much you can do in that country, as well as how the culture feels like. I mean, it's absolutely really different from what we sort of as, you know, the UAE, the Middle East. And I would say the UAE is actually growing rapidly as well these days. Just like Najla talked about Shenzhen. Actually, I just came back yesterday from Shenzhen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was there last week. So I've seen the kind of, you know, the increasing development in Shenzhen as well, how, you know, it turns from a rural village to a great city. And I would say Dubai is actually transforming the city in a very similar speed, to be honest. Dubai is really developing its technology, all those, you know, frontier technologies and activities as well. So I would say that we can find this kind of similarities in terms of this kind of development.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, we all know that like the UAE is also like a hub. Without even talking about just like business or cooperation and that kind of stuff, it's actually like I think one of the most popular transit areas between
Yes.
China and the Arab world.
Yeah.
I flew my whole life. I feel transiting in Dubai, transiting in Abu Dhabi. So I think that in general makes it very international as
Yeah,
a
exactly.
connecting point between China and the Arab
Exactly.
world. Absolutely. And being there, have you studied any Arabic?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I finished my internship there last summer, so I learned a little bit Arabics, like Alhamdulillah.
Oh, Najla, did you hear that?
Marhaba. Sorry, just a little
What was
bit.
the second one?
Alhamdulillah.
I think the way he said it was very fluent in my opinion. What about
Oh,
you?
really? Thank you.
Yes, very good pronunciation.
Lecture
thank you.
Najla approves.
Like marhaba, like welcome. Trishay, a little bit, and like la, like just no.
Oh.
Yeah, like a little bit of Arabics.
Najla's loving it. She thinks fantastic.
Maybe you know yalla because
Yeah,
we
yalla,
use
of
it
course,
a lot.
yalla,
It's
yalla.
like yalla.
Yalla.
It's like
Yeah, yeah.
soba.
Yeah.
All right.
Inshallah, mashallah.
I think it's good enough to have him go into a full conversation with someone. You can get by the day with all
Sure.
this. I like Najla said hello to our audience earlier with saying ni hao. So I think that was a mix. Being here for many years.
And I know inshallah.
Oh.
Tell me about the significance
like-
of Nishilama for Beijing.
Oh my God, that means a lot, to be honest. It's like, it's more than just how are you, to be honest. It's like taking care words, asking not about like how well you are, but also are you really well? Like, you know, the
You're
kind
only
of,
well if you ate. Are you?
Yeah.
Are you full? All right.
And this
awesome.
brings us to the discussion of food as well.
I love that. Both of you, I feel like have really mentioned some points that are deeply integrated in the culture, and there's no way you would have known those unless like you stayed there for a while. All right. So since you both studies in each other's like respective places, what do you think is the future of education? Like, what can education bring from studying from two different countries? We can start with Najla.
Yes, sure. So in the UAE, we have more than 160 public schools teaching Chinese Mandarin. And so this is the first stage of the education cooperation between China and UAE, and that the Mandarin language has to be injected in our education because, I mean, we should all start studying Chinese. It's the future, I would say. Maybe one day this interview will be also conducted in Chinese, where all of us speaking Chinese. And so the education aspect is very key, even in terms, I mean, of higher education. We see more focus on, let's say, East Asian studies, Chinese studies as well. And that, like, we have to understand the changing dynamics of the world and like how China and East Asia are also in better and like more deeper partnership with the Arab world. And so education is very adapting here in the UAE and in the, I would say, the Arab world. And we really value that. I mean, we see more and more universities in China offering bachelor degrees in Arabic literature and in Arabic studies. And like, I'm always impressed by the Chinese speakers who are speaking very good Arabic. It's always like it makes me maybe feel bad in that like I have to catch up with their Arabic level. I'm always surprised, and this comes out of the passion from both sides, and that for us maybe to understand the Chinese people more because we are dealing more in terms of, let's say, trade, digital economy, infrastructure, artificial intelligence, technology with the Chinese people. So we have to understand the Chinese mentality as well, so that like we can do work in a better way. Same goes for the Chinese side. I see that they are very passionate about speaking Arabic and the different, accents within the Arab world. And whenever, like, I even now, whenever I visit China or I see Chinese people here in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, they try to use their Arabic words, and they try to practice it with me. It's not just like limiting the conversation to English language. And this is part of the education because it's not about teaching only in schools and in universities, but also trying to comprehend the Chinese language and the Chinese culture. So this is education.
Absolutely. Najla said something that is so clear for me as well. Whenever I see Chinese students who really worked hard for 4 years learning Arabic, they know words that are very like traditional. So when we hear them, we're just like, like, how do you know that word? Like, you would never imagine like someone from China would know the culture in depth by using these like specific words we say in Fusha. Like they know the words super clearly. I think it's the same excitement like, let's say, back in the day when you would see a foreigner speaking fluent Chinese.
Exactly.
Now it's not as exciting because like so many foreigners learn Chinese. But for us, like when we hear Chinese students speaking fluent Arabic, it's so exciting. Like it's so exciting. But what about you? Tell me.
Honestly, just like what Najla has mentioned, absolutely, education empowers, the kind of dialogue and communication between China and the UAE. And there is a lot of things going on, including the Chinese language teaching in the UAE, because there is, I think, about 100 public schools in the UAE nowadays teaching Chinese Mandarin as a part of your public school curriculum. And some of my friends actually graduated from these schools, and really they can talk to me in Mandarin. I was shocked because, I mean, it's really fascinating to see, I mean, them speak Mandarin, not just limited to say hi, ni hao, but also talking about what they did, whether like they like something or not, and talking having more kind of interesting dialogue in Mandarin is absolutely really fascinating and really shocked to me as well sometimes. And also, I think there are more than 50 universities in China these days teaching Arabics. I've seen some friends from China, who graduated from Chinese universities, decided to work in the Middle East because, they know the language so well, and they just want to kind of strengthen this kind of connection.
And as a graduate yourself, by doing research in the Middle East, how do you feel like in the future you can be a bridge, for example? Like, what are your plans? Tell us.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna go study international relations for my graduate studies, and my main focus is actually the kind of MENA-China relations, and that's the kind of the future. I would say it's kind of the future direction that I'm gonna working on, because absolutely, there's no question that this relation, the China-UAE relation, the China-Middle East relation, is placing more and more important role globally,
Yes.
and really diving into this kind of connection and finding how each players in this relation interact is really important to the global politics.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before we dive deeper into the cooperation and future plans for both China and the UAE, I want to talk more about, since you guys mentioned so many lovely stories about being in each other's cultures, we have a lot of similarities. Like, there's no doubt, I don't think a lot of people know that China and the Arab world have a lot of similarities. We've begun our convo by sharing a lot about food, but actually I do know there's much more things that are integrated, for example, harmony and tolerance and the love for your family. So can you tell us a bit more about the similarities that you felt being in the UAE or in the Arab world, their family relations, the way the society is dealt with? Do you feel like it's quite similar to what you grew up with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think society-wise, China and UAE, I would say, is really similar, although it sounds a bit,
Like so
not
far
the case,
away,
yeah,
yeah.
so far away. But it's actually really the same. It's actually how we think of a family. Family is really, I would say, the core to Chinese culture. A lot of things, a lot of activities is around the idea of a family, and that is the case for the UAE as well. Family plays a really important role. There's always a family gathering every week in the UAE, and I think that's the thing for China as well. A lot of responsibilities are around the families as well.
Definitely responsibilities and family relations. Najla, you've been in China for quite a while. You come from the UAE. Tell me, in terms of family relations, do you feel the relations like quite similar to what you see in China?
Yes, definitely. I'm always surprised in that like it looks so familiar for me and like it looks so homey for me when I visit China. Simply because in the UAE we appreciate and value, for example, the values of tolerance, happiness. I don't know if you know that we have a minister of tolerance. We used to have a minister of happiness as well. We have a minister for social development as well. So these are, all of the permanent seats within the cabinet, simply because we value being and like living in a very tolerant society, given the diversity and the coexistence within the UAE. So when you visit the UAE, it's very diverse. So even if you are a foreigner, it looks like a home for you, and like it looks like a big family for everyone. And so maybe whether you are Chinese or let's say Indian, if you are European or so, when you come to the UAE, it's all like you feel the coexistence. It feels like having another family from the Emirati, let's say, people or other foreigners living in the UAE. And so these values also are rooted within China, given that China is very huge geographically. And so there is very good ethnic diversity within China. And so, but like whenever I visit China and like I meet people and I discover that they come from different ethnic, background, but they're all living together and like it looks, very calm society. And this is because the coexistence and tolerance of each other, these values are so rooted within the Chinese society. Likewise, here in the UAE, where everyone, even if we look differently, even if we hold different backgrounds, we live all together. So for us, the understanding of family is not limited to, let's say, my parents and siblings, but also widened to understanding the whole family living on the UAE.
Absolutely. Oh, what a beautiful point she made. That, like in China, with all the different ethnic minorities, it's all still like one family, which is also exactly like UAE. You said there's so many different ethnics and so many different nationalities that you meet there, but you don't feel like an outsider, do you?
Exactly.
Same in China. Like, I feel like even if you're an international person in China, you will find your community. And I've known so many people from all over the world who call Beijing home just because they feel like it's so diverse and they can feel very comfortable here, which is the same as UAE. It's such an international hub
Yeah,
that
I would
everyone
say
feels
so,
like
yeah.
home. Absolutely, that's home and family and acceptance of each other is such a good point to show that both cultures are so similar. All right, well now let's enter to a more specified area of Najla and Barry over here. In terms of, for example, new tech advancement, for example, digital economy, renewable energy, I'd like to ask Najla, what do you think is the place of China and UAE in the future of these developments?
So for China, it has high technological advancement, and it's also the speed of production. For the UAE, also the UAE has been starting recently in renewable energy, and it was very quick for the UAE. I mean, for the past 20 years to achieve such technological advancements, especially in renewable energy. And these two experiences, I would say, qualify both sides, China and UAE, to start maybe aligning these efforts together, maybe to start cooperating in third parties in other parts of the world where they are in need of our renewable energy and digital economy as well, simply because the use of renewable energy and addressing, for example, climate change, it's not the responsibility of one nation state or one country to manage, its geographic borders, but it's also the responsibility of everyone to help everyone. So, I mean, given that China and UAE have the capabilities, and whether in high tech, whether in renewable energy, and they are always willing to help the rest of the world. For example, the UAE is the number one donator in the world. China as well has been carrying different global initiatives to achieve, let's say, the global civilization, the global development, bringing better future for everyone. So I think these are the shared values that would help both sides maybe to enact and maybe to activate their cooperation and advance their cooperation in other parts of the world.
Absolutely, very
Exactly.
well said. Yeah. In terms of different initiatives from China, the UAE is also doing a lot of initiatives to cooperate together to tackle the more bigger issues of the world.
Yeah, of
What do you
course.
think is China's position right now in relation with the Arab world to tackle bigger issues like climate change or
Yeah, of
renewable
course,
energy?
climate change and sustainable development is absolutely really like a common goal, not only between China and UAE, but globally, these days, a really core focus. Just like, last year, COP28 is specifically held in Dubai, UAE. During, COP28, there is a lot of agreement reached between China and the UAE as well. And, speaking of sustainable development, renewable energy is just, maybe one perspective of these bigger issues, but there's a lot of things we can explore and kind of collaborate. One thing I know between UAE and China currently collaborating is desalination, about the fresh water. Because, for the UAE, desalination is always, one core strategy that the government wants to achieve because UAE needs a lot of water and they don't have a lot of fresh water storage and in the UAE, and UAE government has implemented the water security strategy 2036, and during this process I would say China, a lot of companies in China has technological advance in desalination, and there's a lot of collaborations is actually happening between the UAE and China in this perspective. And not only desalination, energy perspective, like electric vehicles, there's a lot going on in the UAE as well.
Yeah.
UAE has its own, grand strategy about implementing more electric vehicles into the market. They want to achieve about 15% vehicles to become electric ones by 2030, if I remember correctly. And there is actually a lot of electric car brands in China that is
Yeah.
actually opening stores in the UAE, in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, and trying to introduce all this kind of, create newly invented electric cars, imported them, export them to the UAE as well.
Absolutely. Najla, I am curious, how popular is EVs in UAE right now, like electronic vehicles?
Yes, definitely. Most of us use EVs right now. I would say like almost all families right now have electric vehicle. Still, the transition is going, gradually in a smooth way. But also, it's interesting that we started having some Chinese EVs here in the UAE, and the UAE started its own manufacturing of Rabdan, which is the first EV, Emirati EV, I would say. So I think this is a good start for both sides, maybe to do more and like when it comes to the production and manufacturing of AVs together, bringing different technologies and maybe opening the market for the Chinese IDs to be used here in the UAE with, definitely some modification, given that like we have a little bit different size, of the streets, and we have, for example, the heat, especially in summer, it's too hot here. So I'm afraid maybe some of the vehicles might melt here. So I think it's a very nice area maybe to explore altogether.
Absolutely. Well, since we know China and the Arab world were friends since the Silk Road thousands of years ago, and then that friendship has developed and it became close friends right now with the Belt and Road Initiative. I think this is quite Nejla's field. I want to ask you, what are your thoughts about the recent years and the future of China and UAE in terms of Belt and Road Initiative?
Yeah, Belt and Road Initiative is a very key area for cooperation between UAE and China. UAE was one of the key founders for the AIIB, and this is because we value the idea of bringing infrastructure to the whole world. We need a good infrastructure for the world to achieve prosperity and development. And so I would say that UAE and China also now celebrating the 10th anniversary of cooperation between UAE and China and the whole world throughout the Belt and Road Initiative. What's good about, having those partners within the initiative that reflects more than 75% of the whole world. I would say that providing a good access to new markets, especially when it comes to, for example, ports, when it comes to aviation, for example, China and and UAE have top ports and containers facilities throughout not only our geographic areas but throughout the whole world. Also, when it comes to aviation, UAE has two of the top, let's say, national aviation carriers. So this should be also utilized more throughout the Belt and Road initiatives. So I think it's what's good about, having the UAE one of the key players in the Belt and Road initiatives, and having also China that is very happy for the UAE advancement and maybe achieving more connectivity throughout the Belt and Road initiatives. It's that it's not only about connecting two dots together, China and UAE, but also opening up for the whole world where UAE and China is providing more of like connected and maybe more of like wider Belt and Road initiative for the rest of the world.
Absolutely. And with all the developments happening, I do know UAE is also a strong hub to bring a lot of the imports and the businesses and the collaborations from China to the rest of the Arab world and the Gulf area. What about Barry, being there and being here as a youth representative of this relation? How do you see the future of Belt and Road relation?
Absolutely. Belt and Road really kind of connects all the countries on this, traditional trade routes together, and bring just more opportunities, to be honest, in different areas as well. For example, UAE and China, besides what we've talked about, energy, energy and sustainability wise, there is also, kind of financial development in the UAE, between UAE and China as well. There's a lot of, companies and banks having its branch in the UAE these days, and also, the Abu Dhabi Authority has also opened, an office in Beijing just recently as well, financial wise. And there's, there is a green bond, the kind of digital currency exchanges happening between the UAE and China, as well as the Belt and Road related bond the securities issuing in the UAE as well these days.
Absolutely, absolutely. So many strong points to show the current relations, but also the future of the development of the two relations, right? I do know Najla is a youth representative. She's like a youth ambassador of UAE, and I would say the Arab world in relations to China. But I do think with your experiences, I know you gave many speeches, you've been part of a lot of lectures between China and the Arab world relations. I'm curious, are there many Arab youth ambassadors to China? Like your circle?
So
is it
I
quite
think, yeah,
popular?
yes, I think what's interesting in that, many countries in the Arab world now are really appreciating of having youth ambassador, national youth ambassador to China, simply because having youth ambassador would, bridge the gaps between the Arab world and China, and maybe bring more of like better understanding for both sides. Especially maybe it's good for the marketing, because China has been doing a lot when it comes to youth empowerment, women empowerment. The Arab world also has been transforming a lot when it comes to these two aspects. And so having youth and having ladies, for example, would bring a lot when it comes to marketing for each other and understanding each other more and maybe promoting our initiatives more, simply because sometimes we have to benchmark our experiences, understand how things are done in other sides of the world. And so it's good for China to listen from us, and it's good for us maybe to listen and learn from China so that we develop our capabilities as youth, as let's say women, and as young leaders.
Exactly. As young leaders, I think that's the power that youth have right now. And as a young guy, with all your experiences based on the lectures you gave, the projects that you've been part of, how has that changed you, you think, in your journey right now?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of things happening in both the UAE and China. It's really bring a different perspective for me, you know, from totally different cultural background, and really helped me to see the world from more, I would say, more diverse and more open perspective, and really kind of see, you know, what really connects people from different cultural background, from different regions, and what brings us together as human beings, and really thinking about a lot of global issues that these days we're facing, how, you know, not only one player but everyone together, how to come together and really tackle them.
Absolutely. Well, I think both of you can have, oh, sorry. I think, yeah, absolutely. I think both of you can see that when you're, let's say you grew up in one place, you grew up in one culture, and then you hear about another culture, without going there and experiencing it and being a young youth ambassador and meeting the people there, you'll always have an idea. Like, and that idea will keep growing, perhaps in the false direction because no one told you otherwise,
Exactly.
no one showed you otherwise. Najla, tell me, how has your experience all these years made you feel like if I hadn't gone to China or if I didn't start my youth ambassador journey, I would have thought China was this way and I would have kept thinking it was this way if I didn't have my experience?
Yes, sure. So I would say, I mean, in the UAE, most of us studied at American or British universities. So we have developed this understanding from, I mean, throughout the British and American curriculum. And so what makes me, I mean, very passionate about China, and that, like, even if I do my studies outside China, and even now I try also to understand how we in the Arab world, throughout, let's say, Arab scholars, trying to understand China, how we think about China. And then when I explore all of these, aspects from Chinese perspective, reading about what Chinese scholars write, talking and communicating and having discussions with Chinese people, I think I found that, like, let's say, even a single, let's say, a value or a principle that China is trying to promote to the whole world is totally perceived, I mean, differently from within China. And so this would help me in correcting many misunderstanding, correcting many, accounts as well, and maybe bringing more of a comprehensive understanding of what China is trying to do and how we perceive it and how we maybe learn about these things. So it's like three aspects that would, make it a package for me to understand China.
Absolutely. And same question to you, Barry. If you hadn't had your experience to like go yourself and I want to study there, how would the idea of the Arab world been to you if you hadn't gone
Yeah,
there?
I mean, hearing doesn't mean witnessing. It's absolutely two different things. A lot of things, you know, it's not really about hearing, but really about witnessing and seeing it by yourself on first hand. You can really kind of form, like, you know, the kind of real understanding to that culture or to that community. So I would say going to the Middle East, going to the UAE specifically, really helps me to learn exactly what the UAE society is like, how the community is like, and how people interact with each other. And I think that's something is really core to at least to my understanding, to a different culture, and something that we should really do. Like, I encourage everyone to do so. When you're really interested in one culture, don't just search on the internet. That's just first step. That's good. But really, you know, go out and go to that country, go to that specific culture, and see exactly how is it like, and try to interact with people from that culture.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's exactly how we should to learn about it. And from this process, you really kind of see the power of diversity, to see, you know, how that will change yourself, will change your perspective. And I think that's really the lesson I learned from the UAE.
Exactly. As you said, and as Najla said, in the end of the day, when you really understand the values that are being shared or the customs, you go like, oh, it's not that different. Like, I can understand what's happening. All right, wonderful. You both shared an interesting point about social media or the internet. So I'll start with Barry with this one. How much of a power hub do you think the internet plays in terms of China and the Arab world understanding each other? Like, do you feel like the Arab world is perceived correctly on the internet? How is China perceived on the internet from your young perspective?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, about the UAE, China, the kind of TikToks going on. And I would say, I mean, some of them are really, aren't really, I'd say very great.
Exact.
Yeah, exactly is like. But of course, these days I've seen a lot of really, real life vloggers really sharing about their lives in different countries, no matter it's in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, or in China. But yeah, I think there's a lot of, more and more information going on the internet that sometimes, it's true, it's really happening, but sometimes a bit questionable. But yeah, I mean, there is a thing on social media these days that you can explore about China and the UAE, of course.
And are you quite active on social media?
I mean, honestly, I'm not very active on the internet in terms of sharing the culture, but I do, scroll through all different contents from different social medias. But absolutely, there's more, information on UAE and China these days.
But you kind of filter it out yourself, right? Like,
yeah,
you
I
know
do
what's,
actually.
what's...
Yeah. Because sometimes bloggers tend to over-exaggerate one perspective about the experience of leaving one place. But sometimes they do provide some, information about that society, that culture. So, yeah, it's really like you have to be the first person to kind of correctly evaluate what's happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. Najla, as we said, social media is such a big impact on our lives these days. How is the Arab world, in your eyes, portrayed on social media, and how is China portrayed on social media in the UAE?
I think the good thing recently that I see that more and more people, I mean, from China are using the social media platforms that we use in the Arab world. This is also bridging the communication between the two sides. I always like have my nieces and nephews coming to me or sending, some short videos and asking about like which part of China is this, or like now they know some of the Chinese, let's say, music, and they follow also the Chinese, let's say, makeup and big influencers. And now whenever I travel to China, I have my niece is telling me it's like, please buy us this and that, or buy us I don't know, whatever kind of lashes that they like. And so this has brought a lot in terms of the daily communication and understanding the Chinese people, because fashion, for example, through social media, makeup, food, for example, also bring a lot of understanding from both sides. Before the social media, China has been, I mean, perceived in social media a little bit in a bad way. In that, like, the stories told about China was not necessarily the real ones. But what I like, that I see that China also is putting the effort and doing a better marketing and having China story told in a real and better way. So now people can judge. I mean, people can criticize and judge in that, like, whatever we used to perceive in the Arab world about China is not necessarily the truth. It's only one side of the story. But we have now, like we have been seeing now, more of China story told with videos, with photos, and this maybe would correct too many accounts about China. I think it's also the same for the Arab world and how the Arab world is perceived in China. I mean, years ago, 10 years ago, whenever they see me that like an as Arab lady, they tell me, can you drive? Can you, I don't know, can you study? I tell them, yeah, we are normal people. But now they see more of, Arab ladies. I mean, even the idea of hijab is more, acceptable in China. So whenever I travel to China, it's not awkward to see like an Arab lady with, let's say, wide eyes. So before, I mean, 10 years ago when I used to visit China, they always come and they would like to take photo because, I mean, the wide eyes were a little bit, strange. And they tell me, "Nishi piao." And even I learned the word "nali nali" to say in that, like, no, I'm not, as a way of respecting, them liking, for example, my eyes. But now I see that it's coming more and more, familiar, and this is because of the, I would say, social media.
Absolutely, and both Chinese and Arab cultures are cultures that are, since history, not, how do I say, the most perceived in the most realistic way on social media. So I think this was quite a common point that both of them right now
Absolutely.
have a new vision that young people can also be ambassadors and showing the world what am I experiencing, what am I looking at. All right, since we reached the last part of our live stream today, I'd like to end it with two questions. Firstly, which is, what do you think is the future of China-Arab relations or China-UAE relations in specific through your perspectives? I'll start with Najla for this question.
I think the future of China UAE and China Arab relations should be imagined, through development lens. Simply because we have been facing and going through too many wars, crises. For example, we had COVID pandemic. So I think it's the whole world is, fed up of these crises, tensions. So I think what will be, maybe driving the better partnership and the deep cooperation between both sides is maybe development, where we see that China and the UAE and China and the Arab world are more connected now to achieve the aimed development for the whole world and for the region. Because I think we reached to the point where the world wants to, rest a little bit and had enough of, crises and wars. And so I think the strong tool that China has is that it's leading rule in the world and bringing more and more development and maybe sharing the development with the whole world so that nobody is left behind.
Nobody is left behind. So well said. Thank you, Najla. What about Barry?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, national-wise, there is a huge area of collaboration between China and the UAE because, both countries shares a lot of concerns about, different global issues as well as development. And I think, no matter it's China or UAE, they can really kind of, strengthen this relationship and really develop in different areas through this kind of collaboration. And besides this, I would say tourism is actually also one thing that I would say it will boosting, exactly, between China and UAE. Because I would say a lot of tourists from China actually visiting Dubai and Abu Dhabi these days and really enjoy this kind of experience because it's really a great opportunity for them to learn about the culture as well.
Absolutely.
So I would say in the future there will be more tourism happening between China and UAE. No matter it's Emirati tourists coming visiting China or Chinese tourists visiting the UAE. So I would say that's something is absolutely going to boost in the future as well.
Indeed, indeed. And as Najla said, through cooperation, leaving no one else behind.
Yeah, exactly.
That's phenomenal the way you said it. All right, we're wrapping up. And as a wrap up, can we have one sentence of what are your hopes and dreams in the future from your own perspective on how you're going to shape the future of the relationship between China and the Arab world through you?
I would say just simple thing, a better world maybe.
A better world, absolutely. What about Najla?
Likewise, I think like more peaceful and maybe having more prosperity in the whole world. This is my I would say ambition.
Absolutely. All right. This was such a fun discussion. I mean, from food to family relations to the corporation, I already feel like the relations between China and the Arab world is already really, really strong. Like we sat here as strangers, but I feel like we're also familiar with each other right now. All right. Well, this is the end of our live stream. Thank you both so much for joining us. And Najla, hopefully we'll see you in China very, very soon. Right?
Yes.
All right, absolutely. And
Sure.
we'll be back in the UAE very soon as well, I
Yeah.
assume. All right, so hopefully we'll have
we
another
can
chat
hang out
soon
for
when all
coffee
three
or
of us
so.
can
Yeah,
be
of course,
either in
Najla.
China together or in UAE together. All right?
do, for
so
sure.
this is the end of our live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you missed our live, please tune back to CGTN on all social media platforms to rewatch our episode. This is The Hype. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time.
Thank you.